Vega, the Weaver system. When ancient cultures looked at the Vega star, they didn't treat it as a decoration. They recognized that it had a role. Across time and geography, Vega was consistently described as a weaver, a force that threads outcomes governed by separation and enforced timing. Now, modern readings often dismiss this metaphor or romance that they write it as, but mythology doesn't work by beginning with imagination, it begins with pattern recognition. Now, most stars remain unnamed points of light. A few become anchors. Now, Vega is one of those anchors. It's bright, it's fixed, it's impossible to ignore. It returned to the same position year after year, behaving less like background scenery and more like a true reference point, which is what is a tree like. When something in the sky behaves consistently enough, humans don't just observe it, they assign function to it. And this is where the mythology and story really kicks in. Now, weaving itself is not creation by force. Weaving is order. It is the placement of one element after another in strict sequence where deviation collapses the structure. In myth, the weaver does not command, but the weaver regulates. And this is why Vega was never portrayed as a warrior or a ruler in cosmology. It is always portrayed as a keeper of patterns. And the myth does not say that Vega creates destiny. It says Vega binds outcomes to timing. Now, in the myth, Vega is separated from Altair by the Milky Way. And this detail appears so consistently across cultures that it can't be explained away. The Milky Way is not treated as an empty space. It is described as a river, a boundary, a divider between realms. So rivers don't exist just to be admired, they exist to separate territory. This allows crossing only under specific points, under specific conditions, and myth preserves this logic precisely. The Milky Way was remembered not as a distance, but as a restriction in this relationship here. Now, Altair is, in mythological sense, is often misunderstood. It is said to be trapped, but it's not. It's actually positioned. On one side of the divide exists sequencing and design. On the other side exists endurance and continuity. Now, myth never allows them to remain together because permanence would disrupt the balance of this story that it's describing. And this is not tragedy. This is containment of two forces, right? The Vega star being a force of creation, Altair being a force of continuance. Now, these two in most stories, they are allowed to meet once a year. And the stories in myth often frame it as mercy. But myth is a place with precise and does not really have exceptions. So this once per year cycle suggests a window, not necessarily a reward, but a narrow alignment where conditions temporarily permit contact without destabilizing the river that it protects. And the myth is not saying that love breaks the rules, it's saying that rules occasionally allow this exceptional alignment. Now, the reason the mythology among this star has been so strong is because cultures sometimes lack the language for systems, frequencies, and regulated interactions, especially on this scale. So what we use is weaving becomes synonymous with sequencing. Rivers are told to, define boundaries. Lovers are used as counterbalances, two forces that want to get together, right? The story endured because it was beautiful enough for us to remember, but it became encoded. It was encoding something that's far more important. These are former powers that are expressed not through their expansion, but through their restraint. Now, the Weaver Star myth is not about romance, although it's told in a romantic way. It's about the order surviving memory. It preserves the idea that not everything can connect or should, that timing matters more than desire, and that some boundaries exist not to punish, but to keep the entire world safe from collapsing. So myth doesn't tell us what was, but it's telling us the important things that should not be forgotten. And that's what the myth associated with this star, the Vega star, and we'll talk about this star more because it does have some significance in some other stories that we're going to talk about.